after going down 0-2. And I remember like one of my buddies texted me and it's just like Bucks in 6. And I was like, I mean, it could happen. They got to win the next 4, but I mean, it's possible. And they did. They did it. So that was pretty cool. I am Garrett.
I am Brandon.
We are here to talk about GOATs.
So we're going to talk about, discuss, debate the greatest of all time,
Barry Sanders,
with Damian Tomlinson.
You're listening to the Goat Herders podcast, where we herd the greatest of all time.
Welcome back to the Goat Herders podcast. Big news this week. The Milwaukee Bucks are the NBA champions for the first time in 50 years. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Garrett. And today we're going to give you a little bit of a rundown on Bucks of the past. Brandon's love for the Bucks, how it has grown, how it has diminished a little bit, some of his favorite characters. We'll also touch on
You're talking about them as if they're like these caricatures, like they're just like fake people.
They are. I mean, like, that. Are they even real players? Do they actually really play? Is this Space Jam?
I feel
or is it Space Jam 2? But we'll start with that. We'll talk a little bit about the Phoenix Suns and their players, and then we'll close with Giannis and some other greats of all time for the Bucks. So Brandon, let's hear about your love for the Bucks to start.
So my love for the Bucks goes back to my childhood. And early 2000s, I really liked Ray Allen, the big three, Glenn Robinson, Sam Cassell, looks like a skeleton Cassell. Hilarious guy, but just not the prettiest. But the big three, I remember them going up against the Philadelphia 76ers and losing to AI and in the 76ers, and I believe 2000, and then they got swept by the Lakers. But I was a huge fan of the Bucks that year. Ray Allen was by far my favorite player, the greatest shooter of all time. Definitely, in my book, one of the GOATs of the NBA for so many reasons, including his time with the Bucks. And that kind of started my passion for the Bucks. And for a while, I would listen to the Bucks every single game that I could on the radio. I couldn't watch them online or on TV for that matter. They weren't really on my channels. So I would listen to their games, and I listened for about half the season one year. And then that happened to be the year they traded away Ray Allen for, Gary the Glove Payton, another jabbermouth who came to the Bucks, took them to the playoffs as like an 8 seed, and they got demolished. And then he left the next year, and I believe he went and played for the Lakers and won a championship. So, and Ray Allen went to the Sonics, and then he went to the Celtics and won a championship. So my Milwaukee Bucks history has basically been my favorite players leaving to go win championships somewhere else. But I always wanted to be out on the wing shooting 3-pointers because of Ray Allen and how amazing he was. One of the greatest 3-point shooters for sure of all time. So that's kind of my history of the Bucks. Kind of when they got into the Michael Redd era and they weren't really winning much, I kind of faded away. Brandon Jennings got me a little bit intrigued for a while, and he kind of faded out.
I did want to comment on him, on Brandon Jennings. I was actually going to bring this up. Are you familiar with the Bucks in 6 chant?
No.
Really? So no. That was a huge deal this year. Everyone was calling Bucks in 6. Like after game 3, I think it really started to pick up this year. And it originated from Brandon Jennings back in 2013 when he was interviewed, and he was saying, he was quoted saying, "I'm sure everybody is writing us off, but I see us winning the series in 6. So he was saying that they were going to win the series in 2013 in 6 games. They didn't. So that was the sad part of it. But that picked back up this year after game 3, after they beat the Suns after going down 0-2. And I remember like one of my buddies texted me and it's just like Bucks in 6. And I was like, I mean, it could happen. They got to win the next 4, but I mean, it's possible. And they did. They did it. So that was pretty cool. But Brandon Jennings was actually the one that originally said that.
Yeah. My intrigue by the Bucks went up substantially when I watched a news story on Giannis. And I think most people would agree he is just a very impressive human being. And that news story did not leave me disappointed at all. I was like, wow, this guy's fantastic. I'm so glad he found Milwaukee. So glad he loves Milwaukee. When he came up for free agency this past year, after watching that interview that he had, I was like, there's no way he's leaving. It's going to shock people. But I was fully confident that the Bucks would bring home a championship. And I was very excited for that. Didn't really bother to pay attention enough, but I fully expected 2021 championship or sometime soon after, just from hearing about him and what kind of person he was. And I mean, incredible athlete.
Yeah. And I do want to comment on that too, in that he has, over the past couple of years, not being a huge basketball fan myself, he has become my favorite player, hands down, just because of the fact that he is so loyal to Milwaukee. He did come out and say, my family has a home here. I love Milwaukee. I love being here. I'm not going anywhere. And that is so rare to see in the NBA these days, because you've got the players that are chasing after the money, that they're chasing after the championship. They're going to the dream teams, the Brooklyn Nets, the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Lakers. Like you've got all those players that are chasing that championship. Whereas Giannis said, I'm staying here. I'm going to play here. I love this place and this is my home. And that I loved that about him.
And I can guarantee you that everybody in Ohio would agree that if LeBron James had stuck to that as his thing, he would be universally loved by everyone if he had done that. Instead, he put a little bit of I know he brought a championship to the Cavs, but he definitely has tainted that relationship forever in my book. And even as a fan, just a passive fan, I would have loved to see him hold out in Cleveland, because Ohio was such an important place for him. That's where he grew up. So it's cool to see somebody else who kind of said, you know what, I'm not going to do that. And I think it's easier for him because he didn't grow up here. It's not culturally the way he views things. He's like, why would I move? I live here. That concept is very different for someone who grew up in Europe compared to someone who grew up around the NBA, like a LeBron, for example.
Yeah. And to go with the family thing, like he has his brother, I can't say the names, like Thanasis, who is on the Bucks team as well. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah. So he has his brother, Thanasis is on his team. That's one of his brothers. And then there's another brother, Kostas, that plays for the Lakers. So like there's 3 of them in the NBA. He's obviously the most well-known one, but his brother's on the team. So that's really cool too, is that like he has that family in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. And that's great. I have so much respect for the man.
Yeah. So coming up to 2021 in the NBA Finals, I think some key things to talk about. For me, I didn't actually watch it, but I am a big fan, and I was excited to see that they were in it. And I was excited to see that they won. I watched some highlights, and I was very happy to see Chris Paul playing in the NBA Finals for the first time. Growing up in the mid thousands, I became a very big Chris Paul fan. Watching him at Wake Forest and the things that he was doing there was super impressive. And just the way that he played was just so exciting to watch. Just his ball control, his leadership, and his intensity always really impressed me with Chris Paul.
That was another good thing that I was looking forward to in the finals too, is that story of him playing in there for the first time. And Devin Booker, I was also really upset last year when the Suns played in the bubble, when the whole COVID thing happened in 2020, the whole season was out the drain, and they only invited so many teams that were like still in playoff contention to go and play in the bubble. And then the Suns went undefeated. They did not lose a game in the bubble and still missed out on the playoffs. It was like by a game or two, just because like they had like the smallest chance of making it, but they did everything in their power to make it and still got snuffed. So I was really happy to see them come back this year and make it as far as they did. Either team, not being a big NBA fan myself, both teams, I would have been happy to see either team win because of the stories that they had. Giannis, just because of the man that he is, Chris Paul, because of what he's done in the league, and this was his first time being in the championship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of a weird championship because they're not really big NBA cities, Milwaukee and Phoenix. I don't know the general sense that people had, but I'm going to guess that there were a lot of people who just didn't care. When you don't have the New Yorks or the Chicagos or the LAs, or really, I mean, Milwaukee is tiny. It's one of the smallest markets comparatively. So that makes it an interesting finals as well.
You didn't have the favorites, any of the favorites this year. I mean, you had the Brooklyn Nets, you had the Los Angeles Lakers, you had the Atlanta Hawks. Like all those teams were big favorites to make it. Milwaukee, I don't think they were up there, but like you said, this was a very small name, if you will, championship.
So kind of a big deal watching the Bucks come and make the finals and then win it. And especially in the way that they did, coming back from 2 down to win 4 in a row, and some really impressive performances from Chris Middleton and Giannis, just carrying the team on their backs. I mean, the game 6, Giannis put up basically 50% of their points, which is mind blowing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a one-man show at the same time. Like Middleton also put up a 40-point game at one point, and Drew Holiday also had a couple really big games. So definitely their big three there of those, kind of calling back to the golden age of the Bucks with Ray Allen in the early 2000s.
Yeah, he put up a lot of phenomenal numbers in that final game. He was the first one to do it. I don't remember exactly the stats. He had 5 blocks, 14 rebounds, and 50 points, and it was like 5, 10, or 50, 10, and 5. Like the first one, the only other people that had done that were like LeBron and I don't even remember. I wish I remembered the stats. It was really cool, but it was a phenomenal performance. And then did you hear about what he did after the game?
No.
He went to McDonald's. He went to the McDonald's drive-thru, and there's video of him. And the only part of the clip I saw is when he's ordering the nuggets. And he's talking to the lady, and she's just got this huge grin on her face because obviously she knew who it was. And he's like, "I want 50 nuggets, not 51, not 49." Exactly 50 nuggets. It's just because he just dropped a 50-point game, and it was hilarious. And just to see the girl's face, just like a huge grin, and she's just nodding, and he's ordering this. So that's another thing. Like, he's just such a fun guy, and just love for the city, going out and being with the people in the city, just going out to McDonald's and giving that girl that experience was hilarious.
Yeah, that's pretty special. Yeah, I think it's very exciting for Milwaukee. It's been 50 years since they won, and they won with Oscar Robertson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 2 of the greatest of all times in their own right. Particularly Kareem had the points record for years, and just a sad thing for Milwaukee is Kareem left basically right after he won the championship and went to the Lakers. Oscar Robertson, still a Hall of Famer, still an incredible player, but they never were really able to do much after that, and just a lot of ho-hum teams ever since then. So it's very exciting for the city of Milwaukee to be able to have that. They don't get a lot. I mean, the Brewers have gone to the World Series, but everybody in Wisconsin cares about Green Bay, and they don't really think about Milwaukee. It's kind of the forgotten sports city because the Brewers just don't win.
These guys, it's
Yeah.
been a while since the early 2000s when Chauncey Billups and
Yeah.
that crew went for my Detroit Pistons. So that's the Pistons have not been there in quite a while. So that's been a little devastating. But like I said, again, not a huge NBA fan, not something I know a ton about, but it's sports. So I like to follow it, keep track of it. On the topic of the Brewers, though, this is a very good year to be a Wisconsin fan, especially with the news coming out with Rogers coming back and going back for one more hurrah. They've got three great teams right now. The Bucks just won it. The Brewers are looking real good this year, leading their division by 7 games as of yesterday or as of this morning. And the Packers are getting primed and ready to have another good run, but you know me, I'm not going to talk about that because I personally think they'll finish bottom of the league, but that's not a very popular opinion. So
I think they're gonna give the Detroit as the top sports city as a run for their money this year.
Yeah, I want to see. It's going to be a good division. There's going to be a tight race for that division this year.
Yeah. So you have any final words about Giannis, or we kind of hit everything you wanted to?
I think we hit most of everything. I just wanted to emphasize that he didn't go chasing this championship like many other the big names normally do. That he is a homeboy. He's staying in Milwaukee. He signed that, like you talked about, the free agency contract to extend it so that there was nothing hanging over their heads going into the end of the season that he wasn't coming back or was. Just a great guy, and he's staying home. He's staying there and maybe bringing them another championship next year.
Not 1, not 2, not 3, not
4,
not 5, but 6.
He's going for
That's
6.
my prediction.
Oh, whoa. You heard it here, boys. You heard it here, boys and girls.
I hope you know what I'm referring to there. That was the LeBron James thing.
Yep. Yep.
And what did he bring? 2 or 1 to Miami? It was not 6.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps us up today. So exciting, Milwaukee Bucks won the NBA Finals, and still partying, and I'll be partying until next year when they win it again.
All right.
So this has been the Goat Herders Podcast. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Garrett.
Meh.